Hey gamers, Blindy here. I have now reviewed 10 games, and I figured I could do something with that. In my mind, I thought maybe every 10 reviews I could do a top 10, a different top 10. So this time around I thought I would do what I would figure to be the most replayable games. And in the future, there'll be a different topic each time. So the next 10 games will be a different top 10 than this one would be. I think this gives me a chance to provide a little bit more context and a bit of a refresher of the 10 games that I've reviewed. And as a side benefit for myself, it gives me a little bit of extra time to play through some of the longer games that I'm playing. So if you've watched my previous videos, you would know that I ask in each video if a game is worth replaying, and I kind of give you an idea of that. So I've kind of combined all of that today, all in one concise video. So before we get started, let's review the last 10 games that I reviewed. A Plague Tale: Innocence, Tomb Raider, the 2013 version, Islets, Persona 4 Golden, Titanfall 2, Dragon's Dogma, Resident Evil, the remake, Code Vein, Batman Arkham Asylum, and Disco Elysium. So now that we got all that out of the way, let's get right into the top 10. Number 10 is Disco Elysium. Overall, this is a really cool game. It's got a very unique aesthetic to it, and generally pretty fun, especially if this is the type of game that you are really into. Realistically, there are not very many games like this. There's a really creative story, very in-depth, and there's a whole lot to learn. But because this game relies very heavily on its story, there's not a whole lot of new gameplay to experience when you're replaying it. Essentially, you're just walking around and chatting with people, and you're going to hear the same dialogues over and over again if you keep replaying this game. It's honestly not a game that I actually foresee playing again, and I'm a little bit hesitant to even play a sequel if one does come out. And when it comes down to it, there's not a whole lot to be gained for dumping another 30 hours into a game like this. The one thing that would interest me the most as far as replaying this game is honestly just the voice acting. I love listening to the voice acting. They did a really great job, but that's not enough on its own.
Have you ever tried your hand at graffiti-o? When faced with a blank wall, most people write unimaginative stuff, like pigs go home and Mona was here. We rarely see pigs round here though, just union cats. And my name's not Mona, so...
Number 9, Dragon's Dogma. I think the pawn system was a pretty cool concept, but I think in the more challenging battles, it ends up just you being around and reviving all of those pawns as those tougher fights knock them all down. As far as the exploration goes, the open parts of the world kind of felt a bit empty. There wasn't a whole lot from location to location. And because of that, when you're traveling from one location to another, it can be kind of boring. And as you're playing this game, I felt that I was a bit underpowered throughout most of the game. If you stray off the path that you're supposed to go, then you're going to be quickly overwhelmed by enemies that are much stronger than you, and that's kind of a deterrent. You like to feel some freedom in games like this, and you only really get that freedom when you are much further along in the game and quite a bit more powerful than the thugs around you. It had some good experiences, but overall, it wasn't something that I enjoyed enough to want to play more of it. I felt satisfied when I finished the game, and really I didn't even care to tackle the Dark Arisen expansion. It was fun, but I think now I'm just done with it. Number 8, Persona 4 Golden. Now, to be perfectly honest, this would have rated lower if it wasn't for one thing. And that one thing is that I've been studying Japanese, and this game has the option to change language settings to be completely Japanese. So if I was to replay this, that would be the reason I would do it. Mainly because I want to be able to listen to the dialogue and read the dialogue in Japanese, and this would be a nice slow and steady game for that. On its own though, I probably wouldn't play it again, and I'm going to be perfectly honest, it's probably just because it's a 90-hour game. It is such a long game. If it was a shorter game, I could see replaying it just to quickly go through and experience everything again, but at 90 hours, that was just way too long. And that's in English, so I can only imagine what this experience would be as a Japanese learner, how many hours I would have to put into this game. But realistically, there's a lot of aspects to this game that are pretty fun. The combat's pretty decent, and the dialogue can be kind of interesting. It just keeps going and going. And on top of all that, I still have Persona 3 Portable waiting in my backlog as well. So that'll take precedent over playing this game again. Now, that being said, this is a personal preference ranking. People that love this game are going to absolutely love it, and I could see many people playing this over and over again. It is fun, it's got a lot of cool stuff to it, but it's just not enough for me to want to tackle it again. Number 7, A Plague Tale Innocence. So, like Disco Elysium, it is a very story-driven game, and it is a third-person action-oriented game, but that's about as close as you're going to get to other games of that genre, such as Tomb Raider or Uncharted. It's a very linear game, so your hand is kind of being held the entire way, which is fine for a story experience, but it doesn't really help with replayability because you don't have a great amount of chance to explore and kind of do things on your own. So it's not one that I have a huge attachment to or strong desire to play again, but I am interested in playing Requiem, and if I decide to play either game, Requiem will definitely be the one that I choose to play first. Now, if I play this again, it might be before I play Requiem, just as a chance to refresh myself on the gameplay and the story and all of that. Number 6, Resident Evil. So if you've watched my video, you'll know that I accidentally played this game on easy. I thought that I was playing it on normal, so my mistake. So if I was going to replay this game, it would definitely be to increase the difficulty in it. So the game was definitely pretty fun, but those cameras and the switching between the cameras was definitely a challenge. Sometimes you might be facing an enemy and that camera will switch, and now you're pointing in a different direction. Aiming was a bit tough, and sometimes something as simple as walking was a challenge, just because up on one camera screen is a different up than a different camera screen. So when it's changing between one or the other, you might be changing directions a bit. And this was in the remake version as well, so I could only imagine how bad it was in the original game. That all being said, it was still a fun game. It's just you're still going to find all the same objects in all the same places. The puzzles are going to be solved the same ways, and everything is going to be very similar. Essentially, the only thing that really changes with a replay is that you're going to have either more challenging enemies if you're going to bump up the difficulty, or you'll just be re-experiencing the combat. And in this game, the combat is probably the worst part of it all. Especially when it comes to things like fighting those dogs. They're just too difficult to hit, and made the game kind of frustrating to play. So realistically, probably the biggest reason I would not play this game is because I would have to experience that combat again. Plus, Resident Evil is a pretty large franchise, so I've got a lot of other games to play as well.
Door's jammed!
Stand back! Grab my hand!
Barry.
That was a close one. A second late, you would have fit nicely into a sandwich.
Really? Thanks.
Number 5, Titanfall 2. There's a lot to enjoy with this game. It's fast-paced, relatively mindless, and it's got a good mix of combat styles. Now, the pilot has a whole lot of weapons, but I feel that the Titan has about the right amount of weapons that you needed. Now, again, this game is kind of linear like some of the other ones. There's not a whole lot of room to explore. And when it comes down to it, it's only about a 5-hour game, unless you struggle like I did, and then it's all of a sudden a 6-hour game. But even then, it's really short. So you don't have a huge diversity of weapons, you don't have a huge diversity of places to explore on your own. So the only thing that really stands out for this game is the combat. And I think that the combat is a ton of fun and is enough to warrant playing this game again, especially if you've got a few hours to burn. Now, I wish that they would have done a little bit more to extend the gameplay. This would have worked really well for a 9, 10, 11 hour game or so, but you get what you get. And I guess theoretically this game has a multiplayer option as well. As far as replaying this game, that alone does add quite a bit. And if potential rumors are true, there might be another game in the works as well. We'll cross our fingers for that. This one was really good. It's got some really decent stuff to it. And if they are working on another one, this would be a good refresher for players that want to re-experience this world.
Unauthorized personnel detected. Active automated security.
Number 4, Batman Arkham Asylum. So if you want to tumble around and grapple everywhere, I mean, this game is great for that. You could sneak around like you're Batman, you could silently take out enemies, and you get to be a part of a world where characters like the Joker, the Riddler, Poison Ivy, and a whole bunch of others are in it as well. And this game gives you a bit of freedom as well. So you get to explore quite a bit and find a whole bunch of hidden stuff in it. And I did a pretty good job trying to find all those goodies myself, but realistically I probably could have spent another 2 or 3 hours to extend that gameplay and try to go for a more of a 100% run. And this game is paced pretty well. You're looking at about 10 to 11 hours or so. So it's not too short, not too long. Works pretty well. Now this game is a bit dark, but I think this game does quite a good job of it. It doesn't feel like it's too difficult to see anything. Now the story is fairly linear, but you do have some freedom within the asylum to kind of go wherever you want to go. So in a sense, it's kind of an open world game, and it gives you that freedom to look around the map and do things at your own pace. So realistically, this game would be a decent one to replay, especially if you are a completionist. Number 3, Tomb Raider. It's a great action game that balances skill with action moves. One of my biggest faults with this game is that there are quick time events, and I'm just not a big fan of those at all. But they don't happen enough to really annoy me, so that's good. Now, while this story is kind of linear as well, you kind of work from one area to the other, so you could spend as much time in any given area as you want before you move on to the next one. Now, when you move on to the next one, it's kind of forced. But that being said, you can go back to any area that you previously visited and re-explore those areas if you like. So similar to other games of this style, you're going to have lots of hidden objects and things to explore within these maps. So it's more than just following the story, and it's more than just moving from one point to another. There are a lot of things that you can explore. There are a lot of things that you could do to explore the area and just experience more of the game. Kind of like Batman Arkham Asylum, you're probably going to add a couple more hours just to be more completionist in this game. And I think this is a game that benefits pretty well for upping the difficulty. So there's a bit more combat involved with this, so you could be more sneaky if you need to, you could be more aggressive. There's a bit of experimentation and trying out new things to see what works for you. And I think overall, normal difficulty was not exceptionally challenging in this game, especially once you've gotten comfortable with the controls and know exactly how your character moves as well. So I think replaying this game, it would be a fun challenge to try a harder difficulty.
I can climb this.
Number 2, Code Vein. Since I first played this game, I was really surprised at how much I liked it. I'd never played a Souls-like before, and I wasn't sure if maybe I liked the genre or maybe just this game. I mean, I guess we'll soon find out because I do have Dark Souls 3 sitting in my backlog, so once I play that game, I'll be able to see if it's a Souls-like that I enjoy, or maybe it's just this particular game. Ultimately, the gameplay is fairly straightforward, not a whole lot of exploration, but the one thing that I really enjoyed was the combat. The game runs a bit long, but as I was playing, I felt that there was kind of a draw to pull me back in, and I didn't mind the length because I enjoyed the combat that much. Now, it's one of those games that you may die to the same enemy over and over again, but in the same sense, it also gives you a pretty satisfying high when you're able to defeat those challenging enemies. And it's extremely gratifying to know when you've played really well. This game is a bit flashy, kind of a bit anime, and the story is so confusing. But the game's design is well done, and I enjoy going through the cutscenes and listening to the stories, even if they don't make a whole lot of sense to me. But really, all that other stuff doesn't mean a whole lot. I just like the gameplay. I like tumbling around and fighting these enemies and doing my best to try to go through areas without taking any damage. It's challenging, but it's just a ton of fun. I really enjoyed it.
Glad we didn't lose that.
Number 1, Islets. So I kind of bought this game on a whim, just from the art style itself. I had never really played any Metroidvania prior to this. Unless Super Metroid counts, I played that and wasn't a huge fan of it. And the art style of this game is very bright and quite vivid. The controls, once you've gotten used to them, are quite good, and the game feels fast-paced yet mildly challenging. There's a lot of cool exploration, and there's even some bullet hell segments just for a change of pace. I like that you have kind of those two options of gameplay. And the length feels just right. You're hitting, 8 to 10 hours or so. And when it comes down to it, the gameplay is the main feature. And it's going to be my best reason for replaying this game. I had a lot of fun with it. There was a lot to walk around and explore, figure out new challenges, and even though I know a lot of those now, it would still be fun to play it again. Maybe I could challenge myself to play it quicker, but realistically, it looks really nice, it plays really well, it's a fairly short game, so it's got all the fun things that I want from a game where I don't have to feel like it's a burden to play the game. It's lightweight, feels nice, but I don't feel compelled to needing to save a whole lot, or I feel frustrated fighting certain enemies or anything like that. So that's why it takes my top spot. Well, there we go, my first ever top 10 video. I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know if you think I was fair, or if you thought I was wrong. I could be completely wrong. At this point, I do want to thank everybody on my Patreon page. I'm just kidding, I still don't have a Patreon, but I do have a Discord channel, so if you want to chat with me, either about games that you saw here, or want to find out what games I'm playing in the future, come and chat with me. Thank you once again. Without you guys, I'm just a weirdo talking into a microphone, and I hope each and every one of you has a wonderful day. Take care.